Welcome to Sage Women, the podcast where wisdom meets empowerment. I'm Melanie White, your host, and I invite you to join us for inspiring stories and evidence-based insights that support women's health. From expert advice to real-life experiences, we'll help you to thrive through menopause and beyond. And remember to hit the subscribe button so that you get the latest updates every fortnight. Welcome to the Sage Women podcast. It's Melanie White here, and I'm really pleased to introduce Alex Hall from Manchester. He's a fitness professional working in the area of menopause. And Alex, I'm so glad to see a man working in this space. Welcome and thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's pleasure to be on.
For those listening, we'll be talking about some of the work that Alex does and some insights into how exercise really supports women in menopause and where we need to go from here, from your opinion. So, Alex, let's maybe start with some backstory of you and how you got to be working with menopausal women.
Yeah, sure. So I'd say it was probably around a year ago. So I've, been a qualified PT for around 5 years, but then I went more into the online fitness space a couple of years ago. And then, like I said, around a year ago, my coaching just went through a phase where quite a large number of my clients were women aged between around 40 and 55. And I just realized the coaching methods I was using, and obviously you learn more as you coach, don't you? But they were a bit more sort of, not generic's the wrong word, but a bit more standardized. And I realized that some of the results with those clients weren't as linear as, say, with guys I was working with that were 25 to 30. And I thought, I need to look into this and understand things a bit better. And like menopause was something that I knew very little about, other than just it was something that occurred with women during midlife. And honestly, about a year ago, I'd say I didn't really know much more than that. But I just wanted to be able to provide the best possible service I could for my clients. So I've always been a big fan of listening to podcasts, reading things. So I just threw myself into literature, listening to some of the leading voices in the space of menopause and health and fitness, developed some understanding. And then it just became a bit of a passion area for a number of reasons. I just found it very interesting, like the number of challenges that it can pose to women and how, maybe lifestyle choices need to be adapted. But then also that even though there is a growing voice because of social media, it still is an underrepresented area within the fitness space. And, women within that age range probably aren't getting the resources and service that they need. So I just saw it as something that I can try and help more people with, really. So threw myself into that, and then did a qualification earlier in the year. Well, we're in 2025 now, aren't we? So towards the end of 2024, to become a specialist menopause health and fitness coach as well. So yeah, I guess that's a short background of how I got to here.
It sounds like just being curious and wanting to do the best for your clients really was part of the inspiration.
Yeah, I would say so, definitely.
And so you did some training with mothers or parents previously, didn't you? And I'm thinking about the parallels between what a woman goes through during and after pregnancy and what happens in menopause. What sorts of things do you see that are similar?
Yeah, I guess it's navigating change is the main thing, isn't it? And things that are, well, it's weird, I guess, when you look at it compared to, say, a man within your adult life post puberty. A man probably, to a degree, I guess biologically, doesn't really face a new challenge in a way. Whereas you think about post pregnancy, if a woman does get pregnant and have a baby, and then menopause, you're facing a totally new physical challenge two more times in your adult life. So I think it is just that it's a new challenge. It's unfamiliarity. Often something that isn't front and center within the information side of things and what coaches are talking about, unless you do go with a specialist, say a pre or postnatal specialist or a menopause specialist, it is
Mm.
something that you're, to a degree, you can end up being left to your own devices a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think a small element of that, or maybe a big element, is that coaches or fitness professionals that haven't done specializations, they're potentially, it's not just like not being informed, it's feeling a bit scared about what to say and whether to say the
Mm.
right thing
Yeah.
because you don't want to get it wrong. But you look at some of the stats, don't you, around research, the amount of research papers that have been done on women in menopause compared to other, other studies, and it's such a small amount that it's getting better, but it's quite hard to get hold of the information to actually service
Mm.
people in the best way.
Yeah, yeah, that you're so right. It's really hard to understand what's going on because there is so little information. And then as a fitness professional, then how do you work with somebody if you don't have that knowledge? I can imagine it would be a bit um, confronting and probably
Mm,
something I can reflect back on when I was working as a personal trainer for women of
mm,
this age, and I hadn't been through menopause myself at that stage. I was thinking, oh, they've all got frozen shoulder, they've all got this, they've all got that.
yeah,
Uh, I had to adapt. It was a small group. I had to adapt every class, and I thought, what's going on? What do I do? So yeah,
yeah,
I really get that what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah. That struck a chord massively. I remember, like I said, around a year ago, I went through a phase, and I was worrying. I was like, am I planning my upper body workouts wrong? Because I feel like everyone's getting shoulder injuries, and then, and it
Yeah.
was the frozen shoulder thing. Like, and yeah, I didn't know that at the time. It's just so
Mm.
interesting.
What do you think are some of the most interesting things that you've learned over the past year about menopause?
I would say definitely is how no two persons experience is the same.
Hmm.
100%. I don't think there's any ability to have like a templated approach that just works across the board. I don't think that really anyway. I think, each person should be focused on as an individual, but particularly during menopause, everyone's experience is different.
Mm.
Um, and I think one of the things that it sits a little bit outside the exercise, the nutrition, the lifestyle elements, but is that a lot of women potentially don't know if they're like experiencing perimenopause. It's just a little bit of a guessing game, and they're not really sure how to approach their GP, their doctor, their specialist on whether they don't even they're not sure what to ask in terms of am I
Mm.
going through this? Where am I at? Where do you feel like I'm at? It feels a bit taboo to even bring up.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. We certainly see that in Australia too, and there's a discussion around the need to help women understand how to approach those medical appointments too, and for
Mm,
medical professionals to be educated properly here. I'm
mm.
sure you have the same in the UK.
Yeah, 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 definitely, definitely. Some of the literature I've read around, medical degrees in places like the US and the UK is that, like there's either none or very, very little of the modules or what makes up the degree covers menopause. Um, so it's not really on the curriculum as such. And yeah, like it's just something that I've tried to help clients with a bit more recently, and I liaise with an individual in the UK who's a specialist menopause doctor around what sort of questions are really important to ask if you're wanting to not find out, but understand whether you are going into perimenopause or whether you are experiencing symptoms. And it's something I've tried to help my clients with because I think, and I'm sure you'll probably agree, I think one of the best things you can do in coaching is just ask, never assume. So
Mm.
always ask someone, never assume a certain thing, never assume you know the answer just from, what they've written on a form. Ask, dig, 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 find out more.
Yeah.
Um, and when you do that, you realize that, yeah, a lot of the time it's that people don't really know what they need to say to, get the right diagnosis or anything. So I've tried to help a bit more with that recently.
Mm, that sounds like a great initiative. And how's that been received?
Yeah, yeah. So with the clients that I work with, they've found it really useful. Um, because I don't know about yourselves or over in Australia, but quite a common story I've heard from clients is, obviously doctors are limited on time, so the appointment maybe, they only have 5 to 10 minutes, and often individuals have just been offered an antidepressant subscription from the symptoms, that kind of thing, and they go away feeling frustrated because people know their own body and feel it's not that, that's not what I'm feeling.
Mm,
Um, so they've found that with the use of a simple symptom tracker that I've had help with putting together, and then also a simple checklist of what things you should mention when you go to see your doctor or your GP. Um, Even though I've created that recently, but so I don't think it's been used in practice yet. But my clients that have read it have said, yeah, this is going to be really helpful. When I arrange to go and see my doctor for sure.
oh, that's fabulous. It must give them a sense of comfort of at least knowing where to start the conversation, because that's the hard bit, isn't it? When you walk in and you're not sure what's happening to you, you're not sure how the other person's going to respond and what they know. And it's almost reminds me a bit of your very first date when you're a teenager and you're both kind of fumbling around going, what am I supposed to do? It feels a bit like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely, absolutely, and yeah, if there's any way that I can help my clients with that process and make it a bit more seamless, then I'll always look to do that where possible.
Yeah, that's fabulous, Alex. And I'm really curious when women come to you for your services, what is the main issue that they present with or the main goal that they want to achieve? I'm just kind of curious as to what brings them to you.
Mm. So I guess it's an interesting one. I think on the surface, a lot of the time, it's probably not going to be a surprise, but you do hear the term around losing weight and weight loss being something that, would be a desirable goal from going through a process of becoming healthier and fitter.
Yeah.
Um, but this is where I noticed quite a big difference compared to when I was working with more general population. Was the goal of wanting more energy, and even though this is, I guess it's a bit less tangible, but to try and feel like myself again. That was something that came up a lot on initial
Wow.
consultation calls. And on the surface level, it was, yeah, to lose a bit of weight, maybe to drop down a dress size, but more importantly, to just feel like myself again. Because there is
Mm,
that from what I, from my experience with people, there can be a bit of a loss of self, a loss of confidence,
yeah.
tied to some, I guess, the more like psychological symptoms that occur can cause a loss of confidence as well. So I think that was something that sparked my interest for, okay, there's maybe a bit of a deeper understanding I need to get here, because it's not as simple as
Mm,
I want to see the scales move by this much, or I want to
yeah.
increase my bench press by this much. It was more, there was a psychological element to it, but a different one, I guess.
Alex, on behalf of women everywhere, I'd like to thank you for your care and consideration and curiosity to want to know more and serve your clients better. It sounds like, um, and we see the same thing here too. I think women think that they want to lose weight and then they start telling the real story behind that, which is I'm exhausted, I don't feel like myself, I'm all these changes are happening without my permission and I'm losing confidence. It's a big issue for women. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you think a lot of the time, given the stage of life it can happen at, so say potentially in your forties, for quite a lot of women I've worked with, they've still got children, aged between 5 and 12, for example. So just
Wow.
absolute balls of energy that never stop. So there's, and they're usually playing sports on the weekend or, busy with parties, that kind of thing. A lot of women I work with are also, in a managerial position at work as well. So there's pressure from work being added. Sometimes that can tie in with, some older parents that maybe need a bit more support and care. And it's like, yeah, and if that's not enough, I've also got quite a lot going on in my body and my mind, which is throwing me. So
Yeah.
it's just a total combination of like challenges, I guess.
Yeah, it's a lot to deal with. I'm wondering how that plays out in somebody's exercise routine. What sorts of changes might they need to make, or how might they need to approach exercise with all of that going on?
Mm. I think it's got to be something that I try and put at the center of um, my coaching, and I'm a big advocate of, is what kind of movement gives you like the most joy? Like, what do you really, really love doing? Like, obviously, my what I'm trained in coaching wise is mainly around stuff in the gym. So
Mm.
lifting weights, using barbells, dumbbells, machines. But I've got clients where, we incorporate strength training where possible due to the importance of it. But the basis of the exercise that we focus on is horse riding and
Wow.
swimming because that's what they absolutely love, and they get so much pleasure out of it. And
Mm.
then we look to incorporate the other more functional stuff around it. So I think making sure you're enjoying it not only increases your adherence to exercise regularly, but it just gets out the thing why I'm sure yourself and me, like why you enjoy exercise so much is the way it makes you feel.
Mm.
It just makes you feel really good.
Yeah.
So I think factoring that in, time's also huge as well, whether, and I think again, something that, just like I mentioned before, with the challenges of work, looking after parents, looking after children, um, I think the a big mantra that I use is like something is better than nothing. I used to be very different to this. I used to be like, if you can't hit your 5 workouts a week, you're in the gym for an hour every time you go, and you're pushing for PBs every single workout. I used to be very much more black and white about that, and I've realised, probably a little bit to a degree of becoming a dad myself 18 months ago, that yeah, sometimes things don't always go to plan, and if
Yeah.
if you can get a 10-minute hit session in, or if you can just go for a walk, it's better than nothing. And
Mm.
that kind of flexibility, I think, needs to come into play. Flexibility, I think, is the key thing now with exercise at this stage of life.
Yeah, well said. Definitely flexibility. And I love the focus on doing what you enjoy. It makes so much sense, but we're not taught that when we study personal training or exercise science, those sorts of things necessarily. It's more about the mechanics and the functional training that needs to be done. And
Mm.
that's a very dry level. And I think what you're talking about is adding that more human layer to that. And how do we turn that kind of almost regimental way of working into something that really works with and suits the clients that we're dealing with?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So what do you see going forward, Alex, for this year? What are some of your goals in the work that you're doing?
Um, yeah, so I think it's just to um, continue with what I'm doing, and I'm just trying to learn as much as I can from my clients, really. I know that in the online fitness space, it is very saturated now for sure. And there's a lot of desire from in the coaching space for, you know, to grow a really big business really fast. But my focus really is to learn from each client because that's where I learn my most really is each individual, what works for them, what doesn't, what they can give to me in terms of sharing experiences. So I think it's just to continue learning and understanding because I'll always preface with this when I start working with someone is obviously I've done qualifications, I try and read and understand as much as I can, but I will always be led by you and your experiences because
Mm,
no one knows your body, how it responds, what makes you feel good better than you do.
yeah.
So I'll always be led by the individual, and that'll always be a continuation of me going into this year is just trying to understand each individual, what works for them, and kind of let them lead the way and me complement what works for them in a way.
Mm,
So that's a big focus. And then I'm also looking to build out, well, I've started building out a community space where I want to just try and help as many women as possible going through menopause with free, useful information and advice, really. So I've put together a community page with education modules around a basic understanding of menopause, how you can set up a healthy environment. And I don't just mean environment like, your carbon footprint. I mean,
yeah.
what kind of media you consume, your social circle, is that conducive to feeling healthy and positive? And, the relationships that you have, the way you communicate, that kind of thing.
Mm,
So looking at your environment, and then more the biological side, looking at menstrual cycle changes, how bone health can be affected. So just trying to cover as many areas as I can, and I'm
mm.
looking to communicate with other specialists to get their input. I just want to try and help people with as much information as they can, so that they feel informed in a space where it's definitely improving, but there's still not enough voices shouting loud enough, I don't think.
Yeah, that I agree with that too. And I love that you're creating a community because that's something that's really hard to get your head around is who do I trust? Where do I go? Who do I believe?
Mm.
Where do I get good quality information? And building a community around well-informed science and then also bringing in the lived experience of the people you're working with sounds like a great way to really share some valuable insights with people.
Yeah. That's the hope, definitely. Is just, yeah, exactly. I think what you said at the end there, just to share valuable insights and give people, as well, there is a community side of it to give people a
Mm,
space to share with others, I guess, share experiences, share knowledge, share understanding and support, really, because there's nothing more valuable, I think, than having someone in your corner and feeling like you're not alone. We're social beings by default, aren't we?
yeah,
And
yeah.
as much as we like to lone wolf it on certain things, I'll always be an advocate that shared experiences just make a massive difference. I was listening to a podcast actually recently, and there was, I think it's like an African proverb that said, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." And I thought that's such a good proverb.
Yeah,
um,
that's great. I love that.
yeah, yes, that's really
Yeah.
stuck with me. I heard that last week, I think.
Um, I didn't pick up on the social side so much, and I'm glad that you just reinforced that because I was reading a couple of weeks ago about barriers to exercise, and there was a study done in the UK, I think in 2021, a small study, and definitely social engagement was one of the enablers for exercise.
Mm.
Interestingly enough, it was they talked about all the barriers, obviously, but then what actually helps women to not just start exercising, but to be consistent with activity. And even just
Mm.
knowing the benefits, they said, could be an enabler. But another one was definitely having social support and peer support.
Mm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's why I guess in Australia is the class, like group classes thing, quite popular? Is it a big thing that a lot of people do?
Yeah, we have Les Mills, and there's all the other versions of that still going on. And I think some people are doing those at home, like Peloton classes and things like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have clients that use online Les Mills classes, do local group like Zumba classes, that kind of thing, body
Yeah,
combat,
all of that stuff.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and some that just play in netball teams and hockey teams and that kind of thing. And yeah, and I used to play group sport, and I'm definitely looking to get back to it because there's something to be said about that community feel within movement and exercise and that
Mm.
shared experience. It's quite hard to describe, but it's such a driver for wanting for you wanting to keep doing it for sure.
Yeah, and as you're talking, I'm thinking about all of the women I've spoken to in the last 18 months or 2 years about what are they doing for exercise. A lot of women are talking about Pilates, but in a group
Mm,
setting, and
hmm
a lot of women are going hiking. I didn't even know
mm,
it was a thing, but I suddenly realized a lot of my friends and a lot of people in my community get together and go hiking.
mm, mm.
Amazing.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I've actually got a friend who is in a group, which is I was actually speaking to someone else around this as well. One of my friends does it, but in the UK it's quite popular to hike and then wild swim
Oh,
afterwards
yeah.
in these because I live quite near like the Lake District in the UK, which is very green and mountainous, and there's small tarns at the top of the mountains, and people hike all the way up and then jump in these tarns, which are, like 5 degrees. So they're like, it's like a big ice bath, basically. But it's becoming a much more popular thing that people will go and do that in
Mm.
groups. I guess maybe partly for like the endorphin release, but I think that's awesome. It's something I'd love to do one day as well, to be fair. But yeah,
Mm.
that's not something that, like you were saying, that's not something I would have thought as a group activity, like even 5 years ago.
It's interesting, isn't it? I wonder if there's an element of not just connection to each other, but connection with nature that makes that a even better experience than just playing volleyball or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and it's something I don't know a lot about, but I'm definitely starting to tune in with myself more, and I have noticed when I take my dog out for a walk locally, I live in like a area where we're on a big housing estate, and I walk to the shop on the pavement, houses everywhere, and walk back. But then if I take a right turn and walk down the street, I go out into the fields, walk by a river. I can do the same length of walk and feel totally different. Like if I go and walk down the river and through the fields, I
Mm.
feel like a new person when I come back, refreshed and like I've been able to be introspective about things. But if I
Mm.
walk on the busy road in the busy street, go to the shop and come back, I don't really feel present at all. So that link with walking in nature, because I know
Mm.
it's talked about a lot and it says how walking nature can make a big difference. I don't really know the ins and outs behind it, but anecdotally, it's yeah, it's huge.
Mm. So interesting, isn't it? When we're thinking about what is the future of fitness and physical activity, and maybe there's something in that. Maybe it's going to be more people more drawn to those sorts of activities.
Yeah, yeah, potentially, definitely, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Really interesting.
And actually, now that we've talked about this, I want to go back to online fitness because some people might
Yeah,
not know what that is. Could you explain
yeah,
a little bit about that?
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. So, yeah, something that I got into a couple of years ago. Because I did do, a little bit of in-person PT before that. So as an online health and fitness coach, it goes a little bit more than just the exercise programming side of things. So when I did in-person PT, I would help someone in the gym with their exercise form, their technique, programming, a routine that helped them get towards their goals. Whereas with online fitness, I'll still do that, but within an app that I use, I'll program and sequence an exercise program, but then also help with nutrition, providing recipe ideas, helping with setting targets around calories and macronutrient intake. It it also allows me to help with habits around self-care and healthy eating and setting manageable goals and habit stacking, that kind of thing. So I guess it's more of a rounded way of coaching someone that
Mm.
at the heart of it is the health and fitness goal, but is a bit more lifestyle focused, I would say.
Mm, interesting. So you use an app and people then can carry you around in their pocket in a way and have all of the
Mm.
information that you've shared and discussed, and they can check in with you that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And
Mm,
I speak with clients via WhatsApp usually. So it's
okay.
quite I'm just, I guess, the nature of how I am with people. It's quite a close relationship, of keeping in touch across the week. And I, I think the main thing that I enjoy about it is it helps with those. We all have those weeks where you look at your calendar and you think, okay, how am I going to do anything this week? I've got
Mm,
so many things to do. I think it's having that person in your corner to help you navigate those weeks and, you know, keep that mantra in your ear of something's better than nothing. If we can only fit in a short walk today, that's okay. So it's having that, I guess, those weeks that feel a bit overwhelming, it's having that support with you throughout the week.
mm. That sounds amazing. I'm
Mm,
sure women
yeah.
listening to this will be wondering, what do I do next? How do I get started with that? Because it is a
Yeah.
challenge to drive somewhere, to show up at a physical premises sometimes, to
Mm.
align meeting times. And as you talking about, it's a more comprehensive service with a lot more involved than just doing a workout.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it comes back round to what I said before, and which is, I guess, aligned with my style, is it's around coaching that person for who they are as an individual, not
Mm.
just around their form, their technique, their strength. It's around their likes and dislikes, what makes them tick, what they struggle with, both in terms of health and fitness, but also in life, what they are great at or really enjoy. It's coaching the whole person, really, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. Amazing.
Mm.
Before we wrap up, Alex, today, thank you for your time. Do you have a tip or a couple of tips that might help a woman maybe going through the early stages of perimenopause and thinking, oh my God, my body's changing. What do I do? Is there anything that you would throw out there as some ideas for them to get started?
Mm. Yeah, I think the first things I would look at is from the movement exercise kind of things, goes back to a little bit what I said before, is always look to prioritize something that you really enjoy doing, and this might be, you might be able to view this as a bit of an exciting time of, so you might find something new that you really enjoy doing. Maybe you've never tried maybe you've never tried like mixed martial arts. You might go to a kickboxing class and absolutely love it, or you might start swimming and absolutely love it. I would use this time to find a time, find something that really, really brings you joy if you don't know that already. And then from a nutritional point of view, I think the big thing with me is rather than focusing on what do I need to eat to lose weight, focus on what do I need to eat to feel good, because that's what's going to set you up
Mm.
for the rest of your life.
Yeah, what a what a great sentiment. I love that.
Mm. Yeah, I'm definitely an advocate of that.
That must really change people's mindsets when you talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I think so. And I think, I guess it's a bit of a separate point, but I think it's something that is not an overnight thing to change in someone's mind, around their approach to how they see food, what the purpose of that food is, whether a food is, in inverted commas, good or bad. It's a really, really tough thing because it's been ingrained in, I struggle with it as well, of
Mm.
thinking, oh, that's a bad food. I shouldn't really eat that. I think there's probably an
Yeah.
element of that in everyone. And I guess I'm sorry, I'm going a bit off topic here, but
No,
I
it's
think
fine.
especially for when we look at history, I think women that are now ages, 40 to 55, in that age where they potentially will be going through perimenopause or experiencing menopause in some capacity, they were probably entering adulthood and 20s and 30s during a time when the main press magazines, the main image of women was size zero supermodels, fad diets. It was an era
Yeah.
of be as skinny as possible, starve yourself because that is the look. In the
Mm.
UK, that always comes to mind to me is the Kate Moss diet, which was
Yeah.
like an apple and two cans of Diet Coke or something. Like, or I might
Wow.
have that wrong, but it was something that crazy. Um, and when you've grown up in an era where that is the uh, what you're aiming for is to be like super skinny, and also the most popular forms of losing weight are clubs where you view foods as good or as sins. You are defined by your progress by stepping on the weighing scales in front of a group each week, and that determines whether you've failed or been successful. It's been and I've seen it firsthand from relationships with weighing scales for some clients. It's been genuinely emotionally scarring. Um, so I totally got off topic there, but I think there's also that to contend with for women that are now entering into menopause. For a lot of them, is that emotional turmoil around that figure, that weight, and
Hmm.
what that person believes that defines about them. They
Yeah.
think that figure on the scale defines whether they're a success or a failure, whether they're good or bad, and it's heartbreaking, really. And it's not an overnight fix to change how you view
Mm.
food and how you think that makes you view yourself.
Yeah.
It's a long process.
Wow. We all know these things, but hearing you say that in that way, oh my God, it's a whole generation of
Mm.
women that have lived through that and have that. And then we also got told our kids are starving in Africa, so eat everything on your plate. All of
Yeah.
that messaging. And then, okay, now you must look like Kate Moss. Here's the cabbage
Mm.
soup diet.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no wonder.
Mm. Mm.
And yeah, wow. That's a great insight, Alex. Thank you for sharing that. I'm really glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It just kind of, I thought, oh yeah, I totally need to mention this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
do.
Mm.
Thanks again for being on the show, Alex. And we'll put some links to your details and contact information in the show notes. I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure to come on. I've really, really enjoyed it, and yeah, hopefully, some of the information is useful for any of your listeners.
Excellent. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much.